to the NBPLA Legislative Summit Masterclass entitled Mentor Me, How to Climb the Government Affairs Ladder. I'm joined by a wonderful panel of participants today, and we're going to discuss how we each became successful in the government affairs arena. So let's just begin. Danielle, please let us introduce yourself and let us know how you came to be the woman that you are today.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone, and good morning to my fellow panelists. Danielle Patterson, I'm the regional team lead for advocacy for the American Heart Association. I also serve as the Indiana Government Relations Director. I have been with the American Heart Association 15 years now in this role. My background started back in the city of Gary. After college, I worked for the mayor of Gary at the time, Thomas V. Barnes, in the press secretary's office as the deputy press secretary, and then ultimately the press secretary. I moved to Indianapolis, where I worked in public affairs for the Department of Health. And then I took a break from the Department of Health and worked for the Indiana Democratic Party, where I ran Governor O'Bannon's campaign in Lake and Porter County. And then ultimately I returned to the state where I was promoted to the Director of Minority Health for the state. And then I left that role and came over to the American Heart Association, where I've been again for 15 years. I'm very passionate about the work. My mother is a 3-time heart attack and stroke survivor. And so I'm very passionate about this work. I enjoy it. And so thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And Tonette, please tell us a little bit about your background.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Tiffany. I am Tonette Graham. I serve as the Associate Director for Public Policy with the Florida Association of Counties, headquartered in Florida's capital, Tallahassee, Florida. I've been with the company for going on 3 years now. I got my taste of politics in high school as SGA president and later matriculated to Florida A&M University, where I served 2 terms as student body president, as well as the chair of the Florida Student Association, which is the board comprised of each SGA president from the 12 state universities in the state of Florida. So that kind of introduced me to politics. And after graduate school, I ended up working in higher ed advocacy in our office of the president at FAMU. And my current boss called me one day back in 2018 and said, come downtown. I want to meet with you and discuss some things with you. And I was like, oh, okay, me, politics, lobbying, really? All right. Had no idea what I was signing up for. My bachelor's is in healthcare management. So my original plan was to be working as a healthcare administrator at a children's hospital by now, but God had other plans. And my current boss took a chance on me and signed me up for this role. He believes in throwing you in the fire, but not letting you get burned. And I've been riding the wave ever since.
That's great. Thank you so much for sharing that story. Steve, welcome, and please tell us about yourself.
Great, thank you. And thank you to everyone for allowing me to be here today. I'm excited about the opportunity to learn and to share a little bit. So my journey began also with volunteering for a national campaign and then local campaigns, political campaigns where I caught the bug. And that really helped guide me to think about career in the policy arena. I was originally a computer science major. I took my first class in Fortran. That tells you how old I am. And that immediately made me think, no, I think I'm going to move to political science. And that changed everything. But my first job was for state government and the Texas legislature, and I was hired to draw and build digital maps. And that was a perfect blend of my interest in policy and my interest in computers. And that launched a 10-year career working in state government, and then also in DC. I did a stint on the Hill in the House of Representatives, working as a press secretary and a legislative aide. So that experience really shaped things. And then I had an amazing opportunity to go to work for a trade association that represented technology companies across the country, but based in Silicon Valley. And that changed everything, frankly. Opportunity to represent companies large and small. It was right around the dot-com years. And that was a fascinating time. It was also very telling because it all exploded or imploded, as you may recall. And so I got to see the highs and the lows in the industry. Moved there to work for a technology company in the semiconductor industry, built that to an opportunity to serve internationally for them. And then when I had an opportunity to pursue a career at Apple, I jumped on it as quickly as I could. And I'll talk a little bit more about this, but it was a great opportunity for me to learn about the consumer side of the business, but more importantly, to learn about the importance and the responsibility that companies have to work on the major issues of the day. And I'm blessed to have that opportunity today with Apple. So thank you for letting me be here, and I'm excited to answer questions when we get there.
Thank you. Thank you. Wow, you all have such amazing stories to tell. So let's dig deeper in. There are various ways. Oh, wait, our next panelist is joining us, Chesney. Hi, Chesney, are you there?
Hey,
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Thank you so much for logging in. So everyone, I hate to put you on the spot right away, but everyone was sort of talking of introducing themselves and giving their background. So if it's not too much, could you please introduce yourself and tell us about your background and how you came to be the person that you are today in the industry?
Sure. So Chastity Lewis, I started back in '06 on Capitol Hill working for Congresswoman Waters and then moved over to the Senate and worked a little bit for Bob Menendez for about 4 years. But I'm originally from Alabama, a little city called Sipsey, close to Birmingham. And so when Congresswoman Terry Sewell got elected, I went back home to work for her as her district director, and then came back to DC to work for Congresswoman Frederica Wilson as her chief of staff, left in March, worked on the Democratic National Convention until about August, and now I'm at Credit Suisse, which is an investment bank. And I'm the director of public policy there. And so that's a mix of like policy and lobby though. So it's been real interesting being on the private side.
Wow, that's great. What a background. So I think there are a lot of people watching, and please feel free to put questions in the chat and let us know if you want to ask any questions of our panelists. But there are various ways in which one can find themselves in the lobbying and public policy realm. So please share with us what you think are the best ways for someone who might be watching this today thinking, wow, I would love to become a lobbyist, or I would love to work for a Fortune 500 company on the public policy side. How would you recommend that someone find their way into the industry? What steps should they be taking in their career right now?
Sure. I think that it's really important to sort of understand at least a little bit about what your interests are. The government affairs space is so large. You can, kind of go a lot of different ways. If I was just graduating college and wanted to get into this space, I would be looking at companies or industries rather, that I might have an interest in, and then kind of identifying companies that may sort of align with whatever my passion or my interests are. If I am older, maybe already out into the workspace, but want to transition into government affairs, it gets tricky. I think that it's a lot of different entry points into this industry. I think that you should maybe be looking, for me personally, what I did I didn't know anybody coming and wanting to work on the Hill. And so I looked on LinkedIn, I looked on Facebook, and I found people who were in the spaces that I wanted to be in. And then I looked at who we had in common, our mutual friends. And so I reached out to those people and started a dialogue and just started to build relationships. This business is really about relationships. And so it's really important to maintain them. DC, I'm in DC, and DC is definitely a place where you don't burn bridges, because you absolutely can. And I mean, and that transfers over into anywhere you are, right? Like, you absolutely will likely see those people again at some point. And so it's really important to maintain strong relationships so that you can build on them and cultivate them. You'll hear people say a lot of times that networking is really important. While I'm a people's person, I hate networking. I hate, like, the idea of being transactional in engagement. And so, to the ability that you can connect with people authentically, I think that that's really important, because it's lasting. And impressions, first, last, middle, they're all lasting impressions. And so those are a few tidbits, but I could really write a book.
That's great. Thank you. Who would like to jump in next? Tonette?
I agree with Chasney. It's all about building relationships, and that's how I got my foot in the door with the government affairs arena. And you have to stay ready so you won't have to get ready, and you never know who's watching you. I had no idea. My current director's wife used to work at FAMU when I was student body president. I had no idea from my leadership and work there that he was watching me. 5 years after undergrad and grad school, I get a call from him asking me to come work for him, not as an analyst, as his associate director. And I'm one of the babies in the game, but also how I got introduced to this today. You never know who's watching you. Yolanda Cash Jackson. I always knew who she was growing up in Florida in politics, but I had no idea that lady knew my name until one day we were in the Capitol last year and she pulled me aside and was just like, oh, okay, we have work to do. We have work to do. You're destined for greatness. I want to ensure that you're successful. So, how can I help you help yourself? And so, it's all about that. It's not always what you know, it's who you know, but building genuine relationships. And I will say that was one of the things that scared me. What you see is what you get. I do not believe in being fake and phony. One of the reasons I appreciate being on the policy side with our organization, we do not handle allocations. Each county does their own. We are strictly policy based. But that was one of the things I was skeptical about coming into this process. I thought, yeah, I'm not fake. Can't put on like that. How am I going to succeed as a lobbyist? But once you get in the game, you chart your own path. You find your own way. You do what's comfortable and what's best for you, and you'll learn to succeed.
That's great. Thank you so much. Danielle, what do you think?
I concur with everything that's been said. I've seen a couple of people enter this arena from just volunteering on campaigns. As Steve mentioned, there are some very passionate people out here in the world. They're passionate about their community. They're passionate about, the work that they do, and they transferred it to, what, I'm going to become a lobbyist. I always tell people there's an association out there for everything. And if you're passionate about something, volunteer, go to work for that organization, learn the process, especially when it comes to policy, learn about those policies that impact that organization and transfer that to, what, maybe a couple of times you go and meet with lawmakers, you talk about the issue, and the more you do that, the more comfortable you become, and then you can learn the mechanics. And so I've seen a couple of people enter this field just through their activism and being volunteers. And there are a lot of transferable skills when you talk about campaign work. Because when you're working on campaigns, you are around a number of elected officials. And so harness that energy and use that to move to the next level. And so when I mentor students, I encourage them to do just that. Mhm.
That's great. Thank you. Steve, what do you think?
I'm blessed to be here with these amazing panelists, because so agree. I want to emphasize the words that I just heard that really spoke to me. Chasney talked about authentic communication, and that's absolutely key. If you're not coming from an authentic place, then you won't connect, and frankly, you won't be understood or trusted. And Tanette talked about being genuine, and obviously that's critical as well, right? For the same reasons, you want to create trust. If you're not genuine, then you won't. And then Danielle talked about passion, and it all begins with your passion. You want to have something that you work on that you care about, right? That you're coming from an authentic and genuine place, and you're able to advocate for that because you truly believe it. And that's the most important thing. So choosing where you, what field, what issues, what area of study you want, and then what area of vocation you want is so critical. And then I believe it begins with those three words, right? Being authentic, being genuine, and having passion.
That's great. You all have so many pearls of wisdom to share this morning. So I want to talk a little bit about mentorship. Greg Jones put a question in the chat asking, what do you look for when trying to find a mentor? But I even want to take a step back before we go into that and talk about the importance of having mentors. Do you need a mentor? Why do you need a mentor? And talk about, how you've mentored or you've been mentored, and recommendations for how people should look for mentorship in this industry. Is it necessary? Danielle, please share with us your thoughts.
Sure. My first day on the job with the American Heart Association, at the time we had a contract lobbyist, and we were transitioning away from contract lobbyists to my role being the full-time person at the State House. So he said, I'm going to mentor you for the next couple of years. And I'm thinking, okay, I've been around state government, I've been in campaigns, what are you going to mentor me about?
Right.
But you have to be open to it. The first day he took me to the State House, he said, I'm going to introduce you to some important people. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm meeting legislators, I have my policy briefs, business cards. I was ready. He introduced me to the doormen. He introduced me to the legislative aides. He introduced me to the janitors. And I left the State House that day. We went to lunch, and I said, wait a moment, we've been here 2 hours. I didn't meet a lawmaker. He said, you'll have plenty of time to meet them. I wanted to introduce you to the important people. And I thought it made sense.
Mm-hmm.
My first session, it made sense what he was doing, because oftentimes I didn't see that lawmaker, but I had the opportunity to meet with the legislative aide.
Mm-hmm.
When I needed my boxes brought in for our snack packs that we were giving the lawmakers, it was the janitors who got my boxes through the door.
Right, that's right.
And so when I look for a mentor, I need someone that's going to give me, I don't want to meet so-and-so and you're going to have to meet this person. And, like Tonette was saying, the leader, because he's going to do this. I want to meet the person that's going to help me to get my job done. And that's what Charlie was showing me. He said, these are the folks that's going to help you to get your job done. They're going to help you to get into that legislator. They're the ones that's going to pass out your papers. And I'm going to tell you, the person who I love at the State House is the mailman, because everything I give him, it ends up on the lawmaker's desk. And so to me, that was so key. And I love him for that experience that he gave me. Yes, I finally met the legislators, but I go down and I talk to the aides, the janitor. I talk to everybody at the State House. And I've had some people say, you really talk to everybody. I know everybody because I want to get my job done. These are the people that's going to help me to get my job done.
I think that's excellent advice. Excellent advice. Chasney, what do you think about this? And just because you're at Credit Suisse, if you could also talk a little bit about having sponsors in the corporate world, because it's my understanding that in the corporate world, you have to constantly have individuals advocating on your behalf when you're trying to climb that ladder.
Yeah, so a couple things, right? Like, I think it's important to, lately now I've been thinking about pre-COVID, post-COVID, and relationship building, right? Because we're in a space now where everything is virtual. And so, where it was easy to just kind of run into people at a happy hour or, ask somebody out for drinks. Now and I'm coming into this private space, this corporate space during this time. So we're having to be really creative about the way we interact now. And we also have to be much more intentional. That follow up, when you meet someone and they show interest and they're in the space and working in lanes that you're trying to get in, I think it's really important to make sure that you're following up and you have a strong sort of balanced approach about it, because you don't want to be, bothersome, but you also need to make sure you're letting people know what your interests are and what you want to do, especially if they're in that space, so that when things come across their desk, they can keep you on their radar. Personally, for me, my mentors from right out of undergrad to where I am now have been a very consistent group of people. And I think that's important. You have to, a lot of times, I've been in situations where I've tried to talk with young staffers coming up on the Capitol Hill, and we might have had one interaction, maybe an email exchange, and all of a sudden I'm a mentor. No, I think you have to really kind of understand when people like pour into you and when people like have an interest of your progression and are, invested in your success. I think, to me, those are the types of people who have become more and more of a mentor in my life. Originally, though, not knowing anyone in DC, not knowing anyone on Capitol Hill, it was important to build relationships with those. I think maybe Tonette maybe touched on this a little bit, building those relationships with those folks. She mentioned Yolanda Jackson. Yolanda was one of the first names that I knew of when I came into Frederica Wilson's office rather. And I, it's just really important, I think, to kind of know the players in your space and then somehow or another get associated with them, be it mutual interest that you might have. If you're in a sorority or a fraternity, draw on those networks if you don't have any pre-existing relationships with people. If there are other organizations that you are a part of and people are moving, and movers and shakers in those organizations, try to get attached in some way to that. But mentorship, I think, is really important throughout your career. I think, Tiffany, your question was originally, what are some of the tricks of the trade in terms of, navigating the corporate space? Honestly, I'm hoping I can find some out here on the panel today, because it's still a learning process. It's you have to learn as you go. So give yourself some grace. I think, don't put too much pressure on yourself to elevate fast. You got to kind of pay your dues, due diligence, build up, work up the corporate ladder. You might have to start, you might feel like you're overqualified, but bloom where you're planted, be really, really good where you are. And a lot of times you won't have to say much at all. People will notice that.
Great, thank you. Steve, what do you think?
There it is. So I've been blessed to have mentors. I've also had a lot of role models, and it's a wide range, and they come in all forms, shapes, and sizes, and for different issues. You can have a spiritual mentor, you can have a professional mentor, you can have a personal mentor. As a dad, I've got mentors and role models, and sometimes they blend, and sometimes they stay separate. But they come in many different ways, and sometimes it's a infrequent thing. We may talk for once every few months. Sometimes it's more frequent. Sometimes they don't know. Sometimes it's a secret, right? My secret mentors, I haven't told them that they're a mentor, but I am learning from them. I'm asking questions. I'm absorbing what they do. Greg Jones, I see, is here. He's one of my mentors. He's been mentoring me on how Alabama works, right? And it's a different place for me. And I'm learning a lot from him. He's also a role model for me. He doesn't know this, but he's hearing it now, because he's somebody who isn't just a successful lobbyist. He's also a successful entrepreneur. He's also a successful father, he's also giving to his industry through this organization and others. He's doing an amazing number of things and doing them all well. And I'm watching this and I'm learning from him. And so even if you don't have that formal relationship, right? Somebody that has agreed to be your mentor and you meet every month and you track progress and have a specific set of goals, you're still able to engage and learn and grow. And there's a quote I wanted to share because it means a lot to me, I think, in this context. And it's Stacy Blake Beard. She's a professor at Simmons and at Harvard. She talks a lot about mentorship, and her definition of mentorship is simply a mutually empowering relationship where both parties learn and benefit. And that can take many forms. It's not a formal thing. So that's few thoughts that I have.
Thank you. Tonette?
I think everyone has touched and covered everything. For me, mentorship, it's very serious. I call my mentors affectionately my life board of directors. I have someone categorized literally for everything, but they strategically work together to help make me better and be successful. For me, sometimes I feel I'm a millennial, but I think some of us use the term mentor a little loosely these days. To me, a mentor is someone who is, as Chastity said, consistent, someone who's invested, as Steve said, in the mutual relationship and believes in you and will push you when you don't believe in yourself. It's because of my mentors that I am where I am today. I had no idea I was even strong enough to serve in the political arena until some of those pushed and believed in me and got me to where I am today. So a mentor, I think it comes naturally. I probably only asked maybe about two people to actually serve as my mentor. Both recruited me. And I count that a humbling blessing and honor that people believe and see something in me that I didn't always see in myself that helped get me to where I am today. And I'm a baby in the game. I've been in politics for what 4 years now. So I'm still learning, always learning and growing myself. But it's just being willing and open to have a relationship with someone who's willing to invest in you and gain nothing in return.
Great. Thank you. So, Chasney, I want to follow up on something that you said. And Tonette, you touched upon it as well. You said, Chasney, that people exchange a few emails and then consider you a mentor. And I think that's very interesting. So can you talk to us about what it takes to be a good mentee, and what you look for as an established lobbyist when you're looking to groom talent and to help, bring someone up in and follow in your footsteps?
Sure. I think it's in what I was getting at. That's been a personal experience on a few occasions, and what I've noticed is like a running, and not just with me, but some of my other girlfriends or colleagues who are in this space. And what I've noticed is like this running theme of entitlement almost. And so I think that there is a level of humility that you must approach really anything, but particularly this space, because there are it could it's so easy to enter into these spaces sometimes, like you said, it's a lot about who you know. And so you'll see people who may not have had as much work experience or don't have your credentials elevate really fast to certain positions, and you start to really wonder, like, you start to doubt yourself, or the opposite could happen. You are maybe one of those people who have really good connections, and you maybe have elevated. And so what I meant by that is you need to understand that this is a process. It won't happen overnight. Really try to start where you are. I mean, I was a staff assistant in Congresswoman Waters' office for 3 years, and it wasn't until her chief of staff, who is one of my mentors now to this day, saw something in me and started to invest in me. And so what does that look like? That looks like he would constructively criticize the things that I may have been doing wrong or could be stronger on. And it was tough, and I really had to have an approach of, I obviously don't know much about this business. These people have been here far longer than I have. Perhaps I should, take a beat and really try to understand and really kind of try to improve on some of these things, as opposed to like being offended by that. And so I say that because I say, it's important to understand who the difference in those types of people. You'll also have some people who just you have a coffee with and might give you some really good advice and say stay connected, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're your mentor. I've gotten to a place where I now, if it's someone who I want to kind of attach myself to or want to learn more about, I have a conversation with them and ask them, will they mentor me? Because I think it does need to be it needs to be a consensual thing. That person, that mentor needs to understand the relationship that you are trying to get from them. And I think along with that comes support. And everybody's not going to encourage or support you. And so your ability to discern between those fleeting relationships and the lasting ones, I think is really important. So humility, I definitely think is something you gotta come to the table with, for sure. What was the second part of your question, Tiffany? Did I answer it all?
I think you did. I think you did, because I basically just asked you what does it take to be a good mentee, and what you would be looking like in someone looking for someone to groom. So you did answer the question.
Okay, good.
I just want to build on that, if I may. I'll just say that Chesney really resonates with me because I had a mentor when I first went to Washington, D.C. I had a job as a press secretary, and I had done media relations, but I had not done it at the national level. Certainly was new to Congress, fresh out of Texas, and it was a big new world for me. And luckily I had somebody that I was able to lean on to get experience. And the thing I asked was, how do you be successful as a press secretary on Capitol Hill? And his advice was so simple, and it's been so impactful. He said, always give more than you ask. And that's the way you're going to help a reporter, right? Give them more leads than what you're asking them to do. It's the way you're going to help other colleagues. It's the way you're going to help your boss. It's the way you're going to help all those around you. And I'll just say, setting that expectation early on works really well as a mentor or a mentee, right? If I'm going to give more than I ask, then I'm going to help. And that's, we're all in need of help, right? And if somebody is taking their time to help mentor me, then I want to give back. How can I help them with their goals? What can I do? And that's the relationship that builds and grows and prospers over time, when you're helping someone else to achieve their goals, even as they're investing in helping you to achieve yours. So give more than you ask.
Wow, that's great. Danielle?
One thing I want to add from a mentor-mentee perspective, as a mentor, I think one of the things we have to also do is to take a step back. If we're giving this information, we're sharing our experiences, we're, walking our mentees down the path, we have to be okay with the fact that they may go a little bit further than we did. And, I've had a couple of people in my experiences that would not share information, because you could tell they were afraid of, okay, she's going to get more of a benefit out of this than I will. And I think that's the one thing that I always remind myself, it's okay to share this information. If they're able to succeed, then you know what, in a small way, I've succeeded too. So we have to take a step back and prepare and be okay with, they're going to be successful. And let's not be jealous, not envy and hateful. I want to be happy that this next person is very successful. I had a young lady from the American Lung Association that I worked with. She came around after I've been on the job for 11 years. And she told me, I would like for you to mentor me at the State House. And the first couple of meetings she had was with leadership. It took me like 2 years before I met with, the leaders in some of the caucuses. And I'm like, wow, she already got these meetings, but that's okay because she was successful. And with that, that made me successful because we were working together on a project. You can also learn from your mentees. And I think we forget that sometimes as mentors. We look at, we have to share our information. No, we could gain a lot from them as well. And so there is a consensual relationship there. And we have to be prepared to learn whether we're giving the information or we're getting the information. But the other thing is, we have to be prepared for a person being successful. And that's what we're trying to do, is to groom people and to make them, like Tonette said, we want to be their board of directors so they'll be successful and move to the next level. But sometimes you see mentors, they don't want to do that. They don't want to give all the information to make the next person successful. And I think that's very important.
Wow, that's very powerful. We have to have the confidence in our industry to know that we have a solid place, and that there's a solid place for someone else that won't threaten our place. I think that's very important. Before we move on, Tonette, Steve, do you have anything else that you want to add?
Just the idea of role models and mentors is so crucial to success. And so as seeking out people who will serve in those roles, formally or informally, extremely important, especially in this business, but then also to give back and to offer that same to others, right? And then those relationships are perhaps the most fulfilling. And frankly, I learned the most, right? Tonette said she's a millennial. I'm an Xer, but it's really wonderful for me to learn more from those who are, from different age, different backgrounds. And so I'm always seeking the diversity in that as well.
Great. Tonette?
I think one of the things that Danielle mentioned really struck me is that you have to be willing to build that relationship and the mentor invest without getting anything in return. One of my mentors said to me, probably maybe 3 weeks into my current role, he said, I want to invest all that I can into you. He said, because for you to be one of the youngest players in the game here in Florida, he said, I want you to be better than I was. He said, when I was your age, I was still shooting around, barely graduated from college, trying to figure out how I was going to get here. But he said, I'm going to pour into you. I want you to be successful. I want you to be better than me. So that when you really make it, you'll look back and realize that, I was a part of your success. And he said, that'll make me even prouder knowing that I help you get to where you are. I don't need any titles. I don't need any recognition or anything. He said, just once you're successful, I know that I've done all I can do and that I'm successful. So that's what it's all about.
That is so true. So I'm going to move on to some of the questions that we have in the chat. Mandy Jones, who is a government relations manager at Advent Health, wrote in to say that for the panelists that are in-house lobbyists, she'd love to know how they run and organize teams. How many people do you have in your government affairs shops? And do you split the work by region, by legislative topic, by relationship owner, et cetera? And just figuring out, well, how do you operate when you're in a corporate setting and you're putting together teams? Does anybody want to weigh in on that question?
Sure. Well, I'm in-house. I'm happy to share, and I've been in-house and out-house, so I kind of can share a little bit of that. I will say up front, here on my own behalf, not on behalf of my employer. So opinions, comments, tweets, and facial expressions are all my own. What I'll say in general, across the tech industry anyway, and I don't know how it is in healthcare, but I do have friends in that space, and I suspect that there are some commonalities. It's geography first, right? All politics are local, and so most teams that I'm aware of in our industry are splitting first by geography, second by issue, whether that's individuals who are dedicated to an issue area or individuals who have issue expertise across a handful of issues, and that way you can split it up amongst team members. But it really does, in my mind and in my experience, begin with geography, because it's so every place is unique, and if you can't apply the same rules and expect the same outcomes if you don't have a sense of the place and what it is that makes it unique.
I'll add, yeah, I'll add to that. So I think maybe you know, maybe look at it from two different lenses, right? Federal and state. And so for federal, particularly for me, I, I work with our public policy teams globally. So our Swiss bank, our UK bank, and then it's DC. We all have public policy teams, and so one of the ways that what I think is really important in house is understanding your portfolio, and the issue areas that you work on will a lot of times sort of associate you automatically with certain subsets of people internally. Um, that's how my experience has been so far. I do a lot of diversity and inclusion in my portfolio, and so I work really closely with our comms and with our head of diversity, our global head of diversity. So I think you're understanding your issue area and being able to kind of pull internally from those groups of people who are working on similar issues. In terms of how many are in our government shop, we only have 4 people. I am the only African American, and I'm also the only Democrat. So, you know, I think that there are even internal landscape that you kind of got to navigate, even in your own shop. So understanding like the political landscape in your government shop, I think is really important, and being able to kind of have a balanced approach in your recommendations, in the way you see policy, and really understanding like the impact that whatever that issue is going to have on your firm or at your company. And we do split, like I said, we do split by region, and we also split by legislative topics as well. I hope that answered it.
Yes, yes, yes. If Danielle?
I was going to say, so in Indiana, I am the lead government relations director. I have a communications director, a community impact director, and a grassroots director. And so what I do, I look across the landscape at our policy agenda, just like Chesney was talking about, and I look at the policies that I think we have the right climate and timing for getting passed in the state. And so once I develop that agenda, I give it to the entire team, and then I start to develop the strategy in terms of where we definitely need that media advocacy support, those districts where I know we're going to need a vote out of. We need to build up our social media and media advocacy support in that area. I look to see if we have any advocates in that district, and if not, then it's my grassroots director's responsibility for finding me some advocates in that area. And then our community impact director, her job, unfortunately, we're in COVID, but her job was to have those local conversations with local organizations to build that support organizationally behind this policy. And that's how we work together. But it all starts with my agenda. And, you know, I tell them, we're going to move quickly, we're going to move fast. And so we don't have time to, well, I can't find anybody. Well, you're going to have to go out and look. We're going to have to find somebody that's definitely going to get behind this and support it. So back when we didn't have COVID, that means you're going to have to just go spend some time in that county or in that district. But now, you know, everything's done virtually. So our team really works well together. And I have to remember, I didn't always do this, and I'm learning it's so important. You have to thank people, provide follow-up, you know, show appreciation, and they really need tangible things to do. And I have to always remember my deadline is not their deadline. They have other work to do. So that's how we do work together as a team. And we've gelled over the last 8 years, and we've worked really well. So that's how we get things done in-house around policy.
Great, thank you. So I have a question, not to leave you out, Steve, but I have a question specifically for the ladies on the panel. You know, as women of color in this industry, I know that many of us, many of you have found yourselves still, you know, in 2020, 2021, filling roles as a first, right? You are the first, you know, woman of color, first Black woman, first Black person to serve in X role. So when you find yourself in these unique first positions, how do you seek out mentorship and how do you seek out sponsors so that you can advance and navigate these fields that, you know, prior to now may not even have been open to having women of color in leadership positions?
Yeah, I'm the only person on my team in our region of color, and have been that way, I think, for 14 years now. We're starting to get a little bit more diverse. I appreciate that. Right now, in terms of registered lobbyists, I do believe I'm the only African American female registered in the state right now. So really, when I first started, we had another African American female that was the lobbyist for the unions. And she had a great deal of respect. And there's a bench in the Indiana State House that's dedicated to her because she sat there all the time. She held all of her meetings were held right there at the bench. And whenever she wasn't talking to someone or meeting with someone, I would just go sit next to her. And it wasn't, I was trying to just probe her or anything like that. I just wanted to talk. I just needed someone in the state house that looked like me, that I could talk to, that I could reach. We had African American, you know, elected officials, but they're busy. Their staff is busy. I really didn't have anyone in the halls that I could just talk to, you know. And so Letty served as that purpose. Wasn't necessarily a mentor. It was just someone I could go, oh my God, you know, just to decompress. So yeah, there is still a lot of first. It's getting better now. We used to have 20 African American lobbyists in the state house, but when we went from a Democratic house to a Republican house, all of the firms got rid of their Democratic lobbyists and hired all Republicans. And so there's been a huge shift. The last I counted, maybe 6 to 7 of us in the hall. And then this year, I'm not even there. I can't chance going down to the state house. But I know for the past couple of years, I've been the only African-American female in the halls. So I do like to have someone else I could talk to and reach out to, but oftentimes it's not there.
Wow, thank you for sharing.
Yeah, if I can add to that, it is a lot of firsts happening right now, and it is difficult. I'm in the financial services industry, and we are people who look like me are few and far in between, and so that's challenging. It absolutely is because you're coming into a space where you really you really do need that support and that just like Danielle mentioned, just that just communal, mutual understanding about our experiences and those shared experiences. And so what I had to do was lean really hard on those relationships that I had built even outside of the financial industry because I didn't know a lot of women who were doing this. And so I leaned on some of the people around me who knew and really asked, really wanted to kind of be connected to those folks. So there's an assertive effort I think that you have to make and be really intentional about wanting to sort of shine. The one thing that I will say that I think is really important is you need to get comfortable with being bold, right? Like you might be the only person in your space doing what you're doing. And sometimes that could be like uncomfortable or just, scary. And it makes you nervous because you start to doubt or wonder, am I supposed to be here? But I'm a person of faith and I believe that like you are where you're supposed to be. And so get comfortable in that space and really try, if I am someone who is trying to get into this lobbying world, particularly in the financial services industry, or really in any industry, I think it's important for you to have be fully aware of kind of what's going on. A lot of what's going on right now in the diversity space and financial services has a lot to do with what's going on in the world and in the country. And so when the George Floyd situation happened, you started to really, corporate America really started to like take inventory of what they were not doing great, which is, having diversified representation in their firms. And so some of us took advantage of that and really allowed for space to have those kind of conversations with your higher ups. And what I found is that they want to talk about it now, like, being the only African American or woman in your company or in your firm, like, what I'm finding now is that people really want to have a conversation about, why it is that way. And I'm happy to have it. I'm happy to have it with them. Some of my colleagues and friends feel like, I can't really fight this battle alone. It's not my responsibility to spark and initiate those types of conversations. But I think that they're needed, particularly in a time such as this. So for me, what I'm looking for and what I go to for my mentors is really just that assurance and just that extra, encouragement that I also have to bring for myself. I think you have to encourage yourself a lot of times, even in some of those spaces when you feel alone, or no one around you looks like you, or you don't have access to anyone who looks like you. You have to have a certain level of confidence for sure.
Yes, yes. And as you were speaking, Chasney, I almost wrote exactly what you were saying in the chat. I said, I try to remember to be my own cheerleader when no one else is around to do it. And that's exactly what you were saying. We have to remember to encourage ourselves because we made it into the room for a reason. So we belong there, even when people make us feel like we don't. And, I'm going to have a spin on this question for you, Steve, but I want to go to Tonette first and get your perspective.
I agree with what Chasney and Danielle and you, Tiffany, have shared. You have to be bold. You have to step out on faith, and you have to believe in yourself. In Florida, I am probably the youngest African-American female lobbyist, but I can count on both hands how many of us there is in the political arena here in Florida. And we are currently a red state. I am the only female, or we're in-house lobbying team. I'm the only female on the team, only Black female as well. And it's just a different space, but you have to be bold. You have to walk in your purpose. And my grandmother would always tell me to lead from where you are and allow God to place you where you're supposed to be. And you're here in a space for a reason, wherever you are in your career, wherever you are in your life, but build a village and support system around you that can be there and lean on those who have paved the way for you. I stand on the shoulders of giants here in the Sunshine State. And there was an incident, I don't mind sharing, earlier this week where I just kind of beat myself up, got a little defeated. I'm currently serving as the president of the Lobbying Association with all of the city and county lobbyists for the state, only Black on the board right now. And I just needed some self-assurance. I was doubting myself, got a little nervous, but I made a phone call to a Florida vet who's a female, and she just assured me, you're here for a reason. You're here for a reason. Stand up, be bold, own the space that you're in, and trust yourself. Trust the process. Everything that happens for a reason, and you will be successful. But it starts with you. If you don't believe in yourself, no one else will. So own the room, own the space, and lay a path for those to come after you.
Amen. That's great. Now, Steve, you've been in the industry for quite a while, and you've seen it change a great deal, I'm sure. What advice would you offer us as women of color as we, navigate rooms where, we're definitely not welcomed, let's say 10 years ago, and maybe still are not welcome today, and people are questioning why we're here and what our value is. What advice would you give us?
So we're at a unique moment of change, in my view, as a white man, and in an industry that's been predominantly male, and that's been predominantly white. I'm noticing change that's unlike it's ever been. But that change is up against a big wall of white privilege, of white fragility, and I think a lot of institutionalized racism in the broadest sense. Today, right now, Colorado has the most women of any legislature with 41%, but still 59% men, right? Louisiana, 12% women. So obviously a big problem. Georgia, I guess, has the largest number of Black elected officials, 25%, and yet still 75% white in Georgia, not reflective of the population. North Dakota, 99% white and overwhelmingly male. So we have these big institutionalized issues we've got to work against. But I will say that the conversation is louder than it's ever been before, and I think the receptivity, especially in corporate America, where the ears are on and people are listening and trying to make change. And so there's a unique moment. So my advice is to seize this moment together, right? Because I do hear that management and people in corporate America want to change, and they need the tools to change, and they want to have the conversations about how to get over these barriers and to really start to walk the values that they're espousing, right? So to me, it's a seize the moment, and now is the time to do it.
Thank you for that. You laid out some really powerful things: privilege, fragility, institutional racism. Those are the things that we face every day when we go to work, but we still show up and rise to the occasion. I have a question from Akeisha Anderson here in the chat. She says, as a young lobbyist that started her job right before COVID, she's found it hard to find mentors, but has heavily relied upon peers that are relatively new to the space and similarly situated as she is. She wants the panelists to speak on their former experiences with learning together or networking sideways with others who may not have been mentors, but are essential parts of their support system.
Hey, Akeisha. So Akeisha was one of our interns in Congresswoman Terry Sewell's office. So sweet to see her or see her question. It's important. It's hugely important to stay connected to those people who are around you, who are in the trenches with you, who may be similarly in situations such as you. We started a network a long time ago on Capitol Hill called the BWCA, the Black Women's Congressional Alliance. And it really is just all Black women, from the staff assistants and the interns to the chiefs of staff and the staff directors, and it's just a space. It's just a space that we can come and share and ask really crazy and stupid questions that we really wouldn't feel comfortable asking in our jobs. It's a place where we lift each other up. We've now had, in the month of January, and in inauguration and an insurrection and an impeachment, and we're in a pandemic. It's quite a bit going on. So that sideways networking is almost essential to kind of moving through this very sort of tough terrain, on top of everything that you may have be going on personally, So I think it's important to keep that network, keep it tight. I think Tonette touched a little bit on building a village and a tribe. Those are the people who are going to hold your hand and sit with you when you cry. And these are not your mentors necessarily. Some of them may be, but and they may not always be friends. They may sometimes just be associates who you can reach out to in that same space, or that may be experiencing some of the same things. And so you need a little bit of everybody to kind of help build this success. But I think it's important that you remember that you got to give some of that back too. And I think that It's important that if you are a mentor, it's important that you are investing, but you're also kind of encouraging along the way. And if you're a mentee, I think it's important for you to have other networks in your tribe than just your mentors. You need people around you who understand and have mutual interests. So that's what I'd say about that for sure.
Thank you. Thank you. And look at that. We're all so connected. You actually served in a role as a mentor for Akeisha. So that's amazing. Danielle, it looks like you want to add.
Yeah, I was going to add. So it's funny. Most of the other Black lobbyists in the hall, actually, I opposed them on a number of issues. But it doesn't stop us. Hey, sis. Hey, how you doing? Is everything all right? Even when we're having a bad day, we get the nod, we get the handshake, hug. And I tell people, go back to what Chesney said, you just can't make enemies. Just because we oppose each other on issues, we're still friends. We still check in. We used to have a small Black lobbying group that we have monthly lunches with the Black Legislative Caucus and other people. That kind of fell off when our numbers started going down. But for the rest of us in the hall, we just do, walk in, hug each other. And, if I'm talking to someone, he's my biggest opponent. He's a tobacco lobbyist, right? And I could be talking to a lawmaker about a tobacco issue, and he'll come over and bump me, and I'm like, get away, I'm talking to him about beating you up. And he'll go, she's good. We'll talk later. And it's not mean or anything like that, but it really helps when you have someone else that you can kind of decompress with at times. And even though you may be opponents, and we know where each other stands, it doesn't mean we can't have some type of camaraderie. And I think that's the thing that sometimes you need in this space and in this environment. Going back to just being on my team, when the whole George Floyd incident happened, I remember my boss called a team meeting, and everyone was just talking about how they were feeling about their buildings being destroyed. And one lady was displaced because the riot occurred right around her building and she couldn't return home and everything. And I looked, and my boss said, "What's wrong?" And I said, "Well, you guys have to understand, I live this every day. I really don't want to hear this today. I don't want to hear about how this is impacting you when I have to live this every day. I have a father, I have uncles, I have a nephew, a 13-year-old, a 14-year-old nephew I got to care about." And I just exited out of the meeting. And she called later, she said, "I really didn't, I should have thought about that more, what you were going through before having you sit in and listen to what your white counterparts were facing and dealing with." I said, I wasn't being mean, but I'm in the moment right now. And I'm preparing for, I got a nephew that I'm just very concerned about. And so we just have to be honest about what we're going through at the time and ask for, you're just gonna have to leave me out of this conversation right now. I can join you on others, but right now I need to take a step back because I'm living in this moment. And I live this every day. So I did want to add that because sometimes we forget that we have to be bold enough just to say, I need to just take a step back at this moment.
Right. And for so long, we weren't given an opportunity to even experience our Blackness in corporate America, right? We have to sort of just every day pretend like what we're experiencing in the world as a whole is not actually happening, and show up to work. Because, I know in my experience, these are uncomfortable subject matters and people don't like to feel uncomfortable, right? So we never want to make people feel uncomfortable. But now more than ever, I think it's very important for us to live in our truth, because it's really the only way that we're going to be able to advance to the next level. So Tonette, do you have anything you want to contribute?
To Akeisha's question, I would just say you have to, again, be strategic and begin with the end in mind. So if you're going in with an objective, you have to realize Everyone isn't going to be your mentor. Everyone isn't going to be your friend. But will we, after 5 o'clock, are we going to happy hour? No. On the weekends, are we going to the spa and nail salon? No. But I need this amendment filed. I have a bill or whatever. And if this person, whether it be your peer, someone older, a role model, if they can help you accomplish that goal, you have to reach out. Say, hey, this is what's going on. This is what my association or organization sees as the issue. How can we work together to accomplish a common goal? And, sometimes from just that interaction and working together on projects can bring a friendship or mentor mentee relationship to fruition. If not, you have to take it for what it is, accept that you've got what you needed done and keep it moving. Leave that person as an associate on your list, but don't get defeated just because everyone isn't going to be your mentor. There are people who are smarter than you, wiser than you, who can learn from you as well, and you can pay it forward and give it to someone else. So just be open-minded, be willing to sacrifice, be willing to build a relationship to accomplish the goal, and what happens after that is meant to be.
Great, great. And Steve, do you have any final thoughts on this subject?
I just want to acknowledge what you shared about speaking your truth and how critical that is. Kind of following on what I was saying earlier, we have a moment where I think, have an opportunity to really expand this national conversation and also the conversations we're having at work and with our colleagues and with our peers and in every state house. This is an issue today. And there's legislation on the table. There's a discussion going on at the public level and in the back rooms. And so it is an opportunity, I think, to speak our truths and to hopefully be heard. And it takes being bold. Somebody put that in the chat, and I just want to say that I see that, and I also echo it. We have to all be bold, and we have to have these tough conversations. We have to be uncomfortable and be willing to make space for being uncomfortable, or we're not going to grow and we're not going to evolve. Because I really think this is an evolution that we're in the middle of, hopefully sparked by revolution, and we're going to end up in the right place. It's going to take more time, but we have a moment here that I think is ripe if we can speak our truth and make space for that.
Great. And so we are coming up on time. So I think we're going to just now conclude with final thoughts. So Steve, since you were just talking, do you want to give us your final thoughts on this panel and last words of advice to offer?
This organization's my first chance to really be exposed to it, and I'll say this is exactly what we need more of, right? People coming together around common issues and common interests and advising one another. And I would say next time, let's make it bigger. Let's bring more people to the table. I really appreciate the opportunity to be a part of it, and I think it's on the right track, right? Taking a look at the different aspects of the industry, the different aspects of our own professional development and taking charge of it, right? Being responsible to push it forward and to evolve it. So again, I'm just happy to be a part of this, and I look forward to helping the organization grow and prosper in the future.
Great, thank you so much, Tonette.
Thank you, Tiffany. Just want to say I was grateful for the opportunity today. I, even serving as a panelist, have learned so much from Steve, Chastney, and Danielle, and you, Tiffany. This has been an amazing event. To the attendees, just keep going forward, moving forward, and the best is truly yet to come.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, Danielle.
Yes, thank you so much for having me here today. I appreciate the panelists, Chastney, Tonette, and Steve, and also Tiffany for moderating this. I especially thank Terry for inviting me to serve today. This is my first year being a member, and actually this is my first event. So I'm very happy that I was able to be here today. The one thing I just want to leave with is that, we have a huge responsibility to grow talent, to not only make this organization better, but to also bring more people into this industry that look like us. And we have to help people to understand, regardless of your educational background, your profession, there is a space and a place for you in lobbying. And so the more we can help people to understand that, the more we could grow this organization. And I also would like to thank Mr. Jones for also having us here today as well.
Thank you. And Chasney?
Yeah, this panel has been amazing. Thanks to Terry Reynolds and Greg, and I just echo everything everybody has said. Thinking back on the title of the panel, and just if I could leave anything, it would just to the panel, I mean to the attendees, it would just be this industry is really tough sometimes, especially like trying to get into it if you aren't familiar with it. I would just say stay encouraged. You know, don't let one or two no's or denies of a job get you down or persuade you. If this is your passion, if this is something that you really want to do, be bold in doing it. And I also would say, in terms of getting a mentor, just don't be afraid to reach out to people, even people you don't know. You never know like how where people are in their lives and if it's time for them to pay it forward. So you may get to reap some of those benefits. Just reach out. You never know. So that's what I'll leave with. But thank you so much for inviting me. It was great.
Thank you. That is great. You know, I can remember a time where I missed out on a mentorship opportunity because I was afraid to ask. So that is great advice. Danielle, Tonette, Chasney, Steve, I just want to say this was a pleasure meeting all of you here today and having this conversation. I know that I personally gained a lot of insight, encouragement, and strength from this. And I hope that everyone who participated feels the same. I just want to encourage, I know that during this conversation, I connected with lots of people on LinkedIn. So everyone should feel free to do the same so that we can stay in touch. And I want to encourage everyone to join the next and final panel of this conference, which starts in about 15 minutes. It's entitled Why State and Federal Lobbyists Need Each Other. So thank you so much, everyone. It was a pleasure. And I look forward to hopefully continuing this relationship in the future.